Welcome back, everybody. It's time for another thrilling edition of Silver and Black today, an LC Sports original podcast covering the Las Vegas Raiders. Also, hello to our audience in Las Vegas on the radio on KDON 101.5 FM, as well as 98.5 The Bet HD2 in Las Vegas, both Odyssey radio stations. Thanks for listening in to us on this bye week Sunday if you're listening on the radio. It is the bye week for the Raiders, and we're back talking Raiders football. Scott Branson, along with Mo Moten, your two hosts, your two guides to keep you level-headed, to keep you real, to put away the rainbows and the unicorns and talk about the hard truth. That's what we're here for, and we do that every week, of course. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast multiple times a week. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio. Please rate and review. Also, our video brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. By the way, BetUS, still, we're giving you this great deal because of our friends at BetUS, and that is 150% sign-up bonus, 125% on your second and third deposit. So they're still giving you a nice little bump, up to $2,000 on all of those. All you got to do is use this promo code, YouTube150. That's YouTube150. Start playing today. BetUS, thanks to them for bringing you the show. All right, we're back. Mo, I want to talk about retreads. I want to talk about the movie Cocoon playing out on Raiders Way in Henderson. And it's very interesting. As you know, obviously with the firings, the Raiders have named Scott Turner the offensive coordinator. No surprise. We thought kind of that's where it was going to go from the beginning. And not just that, though. They bring back a former Raiders head coach in Norv Turner. Remember the Kerry Collins days? Come on. Yep. And he comes in to be a special offensive assistant, or as I've dubbed it, it's take your dad to work day. Right? He's taking his dad to work. And this, to me, listen, Mo, and check me on this, right? Because I don't want people to think I'm just being overly negative, but I'm giving you my harsh opinion on this because I think it's right, which is this is what Antonio Pierce did to put the staff together. You saw the video from CBS yesterday, I think, or Tuesday, about talking to Rich Gannon, talking to those folks about how this staff was put together haphazardly. You have Marvin Lewis in the building. You have all the guys we've talked about. I don't need to go through all the names again because half of them got fired. But this is what you and I talked about and warned about when they were hiring a head coach. When you hire a head coach, one of the most important things, if not the most, is the fact that they have a network and can bring on staff, Mo. And again, we see in a time of need, not some young buck stepping up to try his hand at something, maybe a little bit before time. Instead, we see this. I mean, what was your impression when you saw this?
As far as the coaching staff or the video from CBS?
Coaching staff first. Norv Turner.
Well, the whole Norv Turner hiring. The first thing I thought was blast from the past. Let's bring back Ronald Curry. Let's bring back Marcus Tuiasosopo. Let's bring back 2004 to 2005 when Norv Turner was the Raiders head coach. And I will say the Raiders threw the ball downfield during those years with Kerry Collins' arm. But I didn't. First of all, I had a lot of fun with the hire on Twitter. But in reality, to me, it's very inconsequential. It's a very negligible move simply because Norv Turner is not like he's going to be calling plays. Scott Turner, his son, is going to be calling plays. It was made official, I believe, Tuesday. So Norv Turner is just there to give pointers to his son when needed. But let's forget, Scott Turner was an offensive play caller for 3 seasons. So it's not like he really needed Norv back.
I know.
So unless Scott requested Norv, hey, hire my dad on the staff, we can get things going. I don't really see the big point in bringing in Norv Turner because it's not like Scott's never called plays before. Not you, Scott, but Scott Turner. It's not like he's a first-time play caller. He's been doing this now. He's done this for 3.5 years. He was a play caller for a bit in Carolina. Norv Turner had stepped down, so Scott, his son, could take over play calling duties with the Panthers in 2019. And as I said, he, for 3 years, called plays in Washington. So Scott Turner is not new to this. So this is more of just a kind of like a family reunion. Let's all come together. We know each other because you just talked about the staff that Antonio Pierce originally put together. A lot of those guys didn't have connections before they got to Las Vegas. So it seems like he's, in a sense, overcorrecting, where now you have obviously the Turners back. They obviously know each other, father and son. And now he's trying to build some continuity on that staff, hoping that it'll work for the offensive side of the ball. We'll see if that works. But Scott, to me, the more important hire or promotion for is Joe Philbin taking over the offensive line coaching duties. I think Joe Philbin, while he is an older coach, about 63 years old, I think he was the best candidate to coach that offensive line from the get go. He had some years with the Dallas Cowboys that were great. Of course, he coached in Miami. But I think the offensive line could actually get better. I don't know about the passing attack because the quarterback position is still an issue.
Yeah, and no, I agree with everything you said. And I think when you look at Philbin, to your point, it's not an age thing. It
No.
goes back to, so wait a minute, you had a guy, and your point right there is very germane. Your point about he was probably the best well suited anyway to be the offensive line coach. So why wasn't he? And that to me goes back to decision making. Now, I'm not just trying to pile on Antonio Pierce here because I actually, like most of you, as a personality, as a guy, I like Antonio Pierce. I have no problem with him. It's not like he's a jerk and he's an idiot. That's not what I'm saying. But from a football coaching perspective, this has been botched, and I think the Norv Turner thing is another. I mean, outside the building, I know you'll read reports would say, well, very highly respected Norv Turner. Yeah, highly respected from the early 2000s, okay? That doesn't mean the guy doesn't know football, but he knows football from that era. He's not one of the, if he was still that good, he would be coaching. He didn't just retire to retire. He is retired, but he should, if he was that good, he'd still be coaching. I'll put it that way. So I went in and had fun with it too, including the go to work with your dad day, all that stuff. But people, I had some conversations with the people and they're like, well, what's wrong with that, Scott? If he needs help. And I'm like, because this isn't a training, it's not an internship program. It's a professional football team where you're supposed to win. So I just think, Mo, that there's no, in my mind, and again, I think I said this on the last show, there's no way in my mind that this guy should be the head coach next year. I don't care if they win 4 games. I just don't see the decision-making process. I don't think they'll win 4 games anyway, but I just don't see him making good decisions. And even when he had to fire people, which was the right thing to do, he still, to me, is not exuding the character, the leadership, and the fire we saw last year. It's just not there.
There was a good point made on Twitter when the hirings of promotions were announced. And it was, and I said this too, how many advisors on the staff does Antonio Pierce need? So
Yeah.
now you have Marvin Lewis, you have Tom Coughlin is a consultant, you got Rob Ryan, North Turner is now a consultant slash advisor. At what point do you start hiring people who can simply just do their job versus hiring, as you said, kind of like an intern or a guy who's trying out, learning on the fly, and then hiring an advisor over him? At
Or,
some
or, or
point, you have to make quality hires so that you don't need these advisors.
yeah. And by the way, if you can't do why do you need so many advisors? You should do your own job. Like, if you can't do the job, you should not be in the job. I mean, look, first time head coach, I get it. If he had Tom Coughlin and he's paying him a little dough to be on call and he can call him whenever and that's his advisor, or in the case of Marvin Lewis, he's on the staff. This is what Marvin Lewis did at Arizona. See, for those of you who didn't study the history of Antonio Pierce at Arizona State and know what Herm Edwards did there with the pro, it was very similar. Give everybody a lot of jobs. Now they had some good success there until the whole cheating scandal happened, but Marvin Lewis was there. He did the same thing. It's his second job in a row where he's kind of, and I love Marvin Lewis, by the way. He's a good dude. Like, he's in Cincinnati here all the time, speaks at my son's high school. He's got a very close relationship there. But I'm going just valuing based on the job. And you cannot, and I don't care what you want to say. I see some nonsensical defense out there. Well, what if this and he didn't have this and he didn't have that? No. It's not what you're doing. I'm not evaluating him because they're losing. That's part of it. My evaluation, Mo, and my disbelief that he can do the job is based on what I've seen in his decision making on and off the field.
See, I want to make it clear that I don't have a problem with Antonio Pierce having an advisor or two on staff.
No.
As an inexperienced head coach, you want someone who's done it before to help you along the way, to help you see the blind spots. But Antonio Pierce has still struggled with those blind spots, even with the advisors on staff. That's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
But my general point is, I don't mind him having Marvin Lewis or Tom Coughlin on staff. One or two advisors, but he has like 4 or 5 of them now,
Yeah.
and it's like, how many advisors do you need? And a lot of people say, well, he hired Norv Turner. He can't go out there and get a brilliant young mind available right now because
No.
coaches are obviously with their staffs now. And my counter to that was, well, you can promote from within. Had he added some young brilliant coaches to begin with, and I'm sure he tried to, why don't you promote those guys? That's people want to compare Antonio Pierce to Dan Campbell. That's what Dan Campbell did in Detroit. After
Yes, he
they
did.
fired Anthony Lynn as an offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson, who was a tight ends coach, was promoted. It wasn't like Ben Johnson was brought there originally to be the offensive coordinator. Dan Quinn identified a brilliant mind on his staff that he put together and promoted Ben Johnson. So you're for the Raiders at 2-7 right now. Why don't you promote one of the young coaches on that staff? Because there are some younger coaches on it. Again, it's not about age.
Very few.
But just
an
innovative mind on that staff. I know Gary Harker-Reader brought up the quarterbacks coach, the assistant quarterbacks coach on that staff. We had a show, a week ago. But instead of bringing in guys who have been washed out of the league half a decade ago, how about you promote from within? You may stumble upon a brilliant, innovative mind that you can keep around beyond this season.
Yeah. But that's where I mentioned the CBS video, Jonathan Jones. It's on my X timeline. And he talked about it, and even Rich Gannon talked about it, right? Where he said this staff was put together haphazardly. And as Vinny Bonsignore told us, he had full autonomy. So those of you who want to blame not having a quarterback and injuries, those are all factors in the team not winning, no question. But the other stuff, get out of here. Don't be real here, right? Because the only way you get better is by knowing what the problem is. And here we go again, fire another coach. Because you make a bad decision doesn't mean you stick with it for the sake of quote unquote continuity. We talked about that last time, right? So you have to figure it out. Mark Davis, he owns it all. And I will tell you, you look at ownership, and I'm not here to bash Mark Davis. I like Mark Davis. He's treated me well when he's been around me, everything like that. But the decision-making has been piss poor for decades, and now he's made another one. And yes, he's making money and he's doing all that stuff, but the buck stops there, man. So Mark Davis, if I were you, and I know it's been bantied about, I would get Tom Brady involved and find out, is he the guy? Make him, he's part owner, but if he wants to step away from the broadcast booth, because I know he can't get too involved, make him the president of football operations. Remember, you and I talked about this at the beginning of the year. Make him and give him all the full autonomy. Doesn't need to come to you except for money, and let him do his thing, if that's the guy or someone like that, because it just doesn't work.
My thing is, whether it's Tom Brady and Richard Seymour or another council group, it just can't be Mark Davis making these decisions anymore. It just can't. We've gone through decision after decision that Mark Davis made, and it seems like he's fumbled each one.
Right.
And again, this is not a shot at Mark Davis. I think Mark Davis understands that he's not the most brilliant football mind out there as an owner, and I think he has to be able to delegate those decisions to someone who can make better choices than he does.
Yeah.
And once and until Mark Davis does that, because it starts at the top, because we always talk about that. Until Mark Davis is able to do that, the Raiders are going to be in these situations where you're wondering, is this the right decision? Is this the right coach? Is this the right move to make? It's on the football side of things.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, because I do think, people get hard on Mark Davis, and I get that, because they're pissed about how this team has been handled and how those decisions have gone. At the same time, I always believe Mark Davis does things for the right reason. I don't believe he does it to meddle. He's not Jerry Jones. He's not the old George Steinbrenner model. And I was listening to a show the other day, and one of the analysts said, you got to look at owners. Owners, he's talking about how bad the Carolina situation is. owners can be Hall of Fame owners, right? All owners want to get in the Hall of Fame too, by the way, because they want to win championships and they want to do this. But as an owner, the only way you get to that and become one of the great owners in NFL history is you either are really good at it and you're involved and you do it well. You can go back to the Paul Browns and others in the league. And the other way is you hire the people that get you there, meaning the Bill Belichick model, right? Kraft didn't do anything in New England. He got Bill Belichick, who got his quarterback, and he's going to get into the Hall of Fame as an owner because he hired the right people. Got to hire the right people, just period. That's what it's all. I mean, at the end of the day, it's that simple, right? So all good, but I just think this retread thing is bad, and I think that it's not good. And by the way, I also think this is indicative, and this is the last thing I'll say before we hit the break, of you don't let your employees hire their boss, i.e. the players. As much as I respect the hell out of Max Crosby, I don't have anything negative to say about Max Crosby, but you just don't give in to the emotional appeal because they like the guy. This is what happens. I mean, just does.
Scott, before we go to the break, with any big decisions, you have to put emotions aside. You don't make big decisions on emotions. That's the root of the problem right there. You can stop right there. You have to be able to look at facts, data, use logic, and put emotions aside if you want the best of the best decisions.
Absolutely.
Period.
Well said, my friend. That's where we'll end this segment. Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about the next 8 games. So here we are telling you, and we're at least I'm going crazy on the fact that I don't think Antonio Pierce can be a head coach in the NFL. All this stuff. So why do you want to listen? Why are you going to still be positive? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the Raiders and what we could see over the last 8 games. I have some strong opinions there too, and I know Mo will as well. So we're going to talk about that when we come back after these words. Again, you're listening to Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast, also on video. Hello there. Thanks to our good friends at BetUS, who you'll hear a little bit about right now. We're coming right back. Mo and Scott, don't go anywhere. Hey, everybody, it's Scott Branson with a quick word from our good friends at BetUS. You know, Mo and I love to bet our football. We also bet some other things, too. And when we bet, we go to our friends at BetUS, and we got a special deal for you. It's 150% sign-up bonus. That's right, 150% sign-up bonus using the YouTube 150 code. That's the promo code YouTube 150. That 150% bonus is good on the first $2,000 on your first deposit. And then on your second and third deposit, guess what? We're going to give you a 25% more. So you get 125% on those 2 deposits. You just can't beat BetUS, where the games begin, of course. And I just want to poke around and show you a little bit because I love BetUS. I love the website. I love the mobile app. And we're just going to dive in and show you a little bit here of what's going on with this great site and the people over here. But as you can tell, I'm in here. I'm going to go. Not only can you do football, I mean, they always have great promos up here. You can get a personal account manager, which is incredible. You also can bet everything. I mean, check this out. All the sports are on here, even politics. Of course, we just passed the presidential election. I did not bet on it, but who knows? Football, basketball season is here now, as well as hockey, all these different things, martial arts, horse racing, you name it, BetUS has it. But I love this prop builder where I can go in, click the prop builder, it's going to load for me, and then it's going to allow me to get an opportunity to really go through a bunch of different options, right? So you want to bet a parlay that is in a props for you on a parlay, for example. That's what you can do here. And you can see, you can pick games individually. So we'll go down here. Obviously, the Raiders aren't playing this weekend. So I'm going to go to the Lions and Texans. They got the line here, Detroit -3.5. All these different things. You got game markets, of course. You also have game props. So you can go everything from points to first downs, you name it. Player doubles. And these are amazing too. And then touchdowns, so you can bet on specific players. You can see the lines there. And then you can parlay this all together. So I love BetUS, and I'm really excited about their new prop builder. And you should be too. But you should definitely go check them out. And again, the opportunity for you to cash in is there. I mean, listen, you get 150% bonus on the first deposit. Again, that's the code YouTube150. That's YouTube150 to sign up and get your bonus up to the first $2,000 of deposit number 1, and then 125% on deposits 2 or 3. Please go check out our good friends over at BetUS, because you know what? They bring you a video each and every week, and so we are proud to be associated with them, and we're proud to represent them. And I love betting my football there. So check out BetUS don't forget the 150% sign up bonus from BetUS. Yes. Welcome back. Segment number 2 here on Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast covering the Las Vegas Raiders. Please subscribe, rate, and review. If you're listening to us on Sunday on the radio in Las Vegas, of course on KDON 101.5 and 98.5 The Bet, do us a favor. We have other shows during the week. So go subscribe wherever you get your audio, right? Get the podcast. You can hear all that kind of stuff. Extended phone call sessions with our listeners. The mailbag is great, so make sure you do that. Scocco Branson along with Mo Moten. By the way, Mo is a senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report. We got so far into the conversation, I forgot to introduce him. You all know him anyway. But anyway, Mo is senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report, also Raiders columnist at sportsnaut.com. You can follow him on X at Mo Moten, MOEMOTON. I am at LV Gully. The show is SMB today. Mo, 8 games left here for the Raiders, and you look at this, and we'll start with the quarterback situation. We know Desmond Ridder is going to start the game next week when the Raiders come off the bye. And if I'm them, I throw Desmond Ridder. I don't care if Desmond Ridder has 6-8 interceptions. There's no sense in going back to Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is under contract for another year. We'll see what they do with that somehow. But he doesn't have any confidence right now. I would throw Ridder until his arm falls off if he gets to throw. And then when O'Connell comes back, if O'Connell's ready to go, then he can resume his starting position because you don't lose your job because of injury. So that's fine. You agree with that? I mean, there's nothing to lose here for the Raiders. If they lose, they get a better draft pick, which they need because they need a quarterback. And if Ridder does well, then you might get some answers or some interest in trade bait.
I agree with you there, Scott, but here's the catch-22. And this is my theory after the Raiders didn't make any trade deadline moves. So while other teams are making trades, acquiring players, leasing players, moving players, the Raiders worked on their offensive coaching staff. As we mentioned in the first segment, they hired Norv Turner, they promote Joe Philbin. To me, it just signals that they're trying, and by they I mean Antonio Pierce is trying to fix the offense, because if he doesn't,
he's done.
Could lose his job in the offseason. So I honestly think now, because a lot of fans will say the Raiders are tanking on purpose. This is why the hires are so bad. This is why everything's so bad. They're tanking on purpose. No, Antonio Pierce is trying to save his butt. That's why he fired Luke Getsy. If the team was purposely tanking, they would have kept Luke Getsy on the staff.
They would have.
Antonio Pierce is he's actually trying to fix the offense. This is why the changes were made. He's trying to win football games. So if the Raiders come out there and they have Desmond Ridder and he stinks worse than Gardner Minshew, I can actually see them going back to Gardner Minshew, because Antonio Pierce, again, is trying to win football games. He's trying to preserve himself. He's trying to save his job. And the offense, and I'm not saying the Raiders have to win, 6-7 games for Antonio Pierce to stick with the Raiders and, retain himself. But that offense has to look better, because if it looks just as bad or worse than it did in the first half of the season, he's gone. He's out of there, because they're going to look at the season and say, things didn't get better. Things regressed as the year went on. We understand what you did. We respect what you did last year, saving the team from the Josh McDaniels tenure. But after that, it's rolled downhill, and there are other candidates who want this job that have a better resume than you do. We're moving on. So Antonio Pierce is looking at the second half, in my opinion. This is just me, what I see, my perspective. Antonio Pierce is looking at the second half of the season and saying, we have to be a lot better than we were in the first half of the season, because I'm trying to keep my job. The other part of this, as you said, start Desmond Ridder, is we know the Raiders aren't going anywhere. We know the Raiders aren't going to get to the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. But if you start Desmond Ridder again, and he throws 3 interceptions in a game, and he looks scattershot, then if you're Antonio Pierce, you have to try something else, because you're trying to keep your job. You're not trying to lose games. You're not trying to tank, regardless of what people say. You're trying to win football games, because you don't care about draft capital if you're not going to be there. I'm going to say this again. Yes. People always talk about coaches tanking. Pierce does not care what draft pick the Raiders have if he doesn't have that job. Right. He has to have the job in the first place in order to care about that draft pick.
Right. I agree. And it's to me, he's going to try to win games. I don't think he's capable of it, but we'll see. Now, 1 or 2 games here or there could happen. We talked about 2 games we thought they could win
Saints,
based
Jags.
on some improved play. So we'll see if that happens. New Orleans is a mess. Obviously, they just fired Dennis Allen, so we'll see. But it's interesting. I also think, to your point, this is what concerns me with Scott Turner taking over with Dad there in his ear, is the fact that I think the Raiders need to take the tools and the talent they have and really scheme for it and use it, even if they're risky, even if it's risky plays. So I'm saying on offense, you kind of got to, and it's hard to throw out the playbook in the middle of the year, but you kind of have to. You got to see what Trey Tucker can do when he's targeted more. You have to keep going to Brock Bowers. I saw somebody say to me the other day, "Oh, you should just sit Brock Bowers the rest of the season." I'm like, "What?" Snaps in the NFL for especially a young player, the most important thing you can get, and he's having a fantastic year. So no, you don't sit him, but you have to get out of that. We've heard, this is like the 3rd time that we heard that Michael Mayer was going to be back in the building this week. It didn't happen the other 2 times. Hopefully he's okay, and he's back. So you want to get him on the field because, again, if he can perform a little bit towards the end of the year, you either keep him or he can also be an opportunity. He might be thrown in a trade if you're trying to move up in the draft. You never know, right? He's got still some good street cred out there. So I think this Raider team's got to try and be really be a little crazy, Mo. I mean, why not? Like, what you didn't work, so you're not making the playoffs. And like you said, I understand Antonio Pierce is not going to get too crazy because he wants to win games, but I think they got to be willing to take more risks and try things that might be a little unconventional.
Well, Scott, I'm gonna throw some cold water on that, and not that I disagree with you,
No, I know.
but if we've seen anything from Antonio Pierce in the first half of the season, and even last year, Antonio Pierce is a very conservative head coach. And it seems as though it's all about, and he mentioned this, I believe, early this week or Monday, not turning the ball over, not turning the
Mhm.
ball over. And at some point, if you're going to be a team that's going to push the ball downfield, you're going to have some turnovers. Now, you don't want the boneheaded turnovers
Right.
in the red zone, but if you want to be more aggressive, you're going to have some moments where you're just going to throw an interception. I watched some of the better quarterbacks in this league, the Jordan Loves, the Matthew Staffords, the Patrick Mahomes. They throw picks
They do.
going into that Raider game. Patrick Mahomes was one of 3 quarterbacks leading in interceptions. He and Gardner Minshew had the same amount of interceptions, 8. But Patrick Mahomes made a lot more crucial plays in critical moments. So if you're gonna push the ball downfield, you're gonna have those
Sure.
turnovers. What you want to do is you want to minimize the terrible turnovers, specifically in the red zone, which Gardner Minshew had an issue with. That's what you want to minimize. But going throwing the ball down 20 yards downfield and it's basically a punt, basically, if you're on 3rd and long, that's fine because you're going to give the ball back to the team anyway. But Pierce, being the conservative coach that he is, I don't know how much aggressive and creativity we're going to see. And I'm not saying he hampered Luke Getsy in that fashion, but if Scott Turner is anything like his dad, he's going to want to push the ball downfield vertically.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how the balance works because I know Antonio Pierce wants to run the football. He wants to get Zamir White involved. He still believes the run game is the bread and butter of the Raiders' offense. How is he able to mesh that philosophy with the philosophy of his new offensive coordinator going forward? Is the question.
Yeah, that's the big question. And of course, the Raiders next week, since they're on the bye this week, next week they go to Miami. Miami's not having a good season. Miami's in big trouble. So, but it's on the road, all this turmoil. The Raiders, Antonio Pierce also raised some eyebrows. Usually, when you have the bye week, injured players, of course, get more time. The rest of the team, usually they give them a few days and then they get back to practice, towards the end of the week, light practice. He's not having them practice at all, which is interesting to me because I get it. They just had some firings and stuff like that, but you got a lot of work to do. And so I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that either. I'm going to defer on it. It just raised eyebrows because it's like, whoa, wait a minute. This is a mess, and you're just going to let people let's let them have a week off. So we'll see how it goes. And if that works, maybe it does. Maybe they come back and they're focused and kind of renewed. I don't know. we'll see when they go down to Miami. But it's going to be an interesting second half of this season to see some player development, and then obviously to see how the coaching situation plays out.
I made this point, Scott, on Twitter that usually when things go downhill for a team, the first firing to happen is a coordinator of the weaker side of the ball. So in the Raiders' case, that was the offensive side of the ball. So it was logical that Luke Getsy wasn't going to make it to 2025. We said that for weeks. But if the head coach's side of the ball regresses significantly, the head coach usually gets fired, which you saw in New Orleans. So the Saints' defense regressed significantly under Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen is a defensive-minded head coach.
Yep.
They fired him. When a coordinator is let go first, his side of the ball is underperforming. That's the first step before the head coach gets fired. Just look at any of the firings that have happened over the past 2 years and how it happens. Usually the first sacrifice, I use the word sacrifice, usually the first head coaching sacrifice is the coordinator. And the team doesn't show any improvement. I'm not saying it has to be a miraculous run or turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
But if the team doesn't improve after firing a coordinator, the next step is you fire the head coach. And this is why I've been saying for weeks, for more than a month, that Antonio Pierce, while a lot of people like him, he is still coaching for his job. His job security for 2025 is shaky at best. That's just my opinion. Observing the NFL and seeing how these firings work, how it starts with a coordinator and then goes up the ladder. And with the changes the Raiders made, the urgency Pierce is showing, because remember, he said that firing Luke Getsy was 100% his decision. He doesn't make that decision if he understands that the team is tanking and it's a rebuild 3-year plan. You make that decision when you feel like that you have to improve and there's urgency there because your job security is on the line.
Absolutely. And you're being very generous by saying at best, he's in a dicey position. As the graphic for our show today shows, I think, to use an expression from a Disney cartoon, I think his biscuits are burning. I'll put it that way. That seat is not cool to the touch. It's very, very, very hot, and the flames are kicking up. So we'll see. All right, we're going to take a final break, and then we're going to hear from you when we come back here on Silver and Black today in Odyssey Sports Original Podcast. We're going to get to our Raider Nation mailbag, get to some calls and some text messages today. So don't go anywhere. You're with Mo. You're with Scott. We are Silver and Black today. Oh, yes. Make sure you listen to us on the radio, KDON 101.5, and also 98.5 The Bet. And thank you to our video sponsor, of course, the great folks at BetUS, where you can get 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your first deposit. Use the code YouTube150. We're coming right back.
Enough of hearing us talk about the Raiders. It's time to hear from you.
Any Oakland Raider fan, Las Vegas Raider fan, stand up.
On this edition of the Raider Nation Mailbag.
That black hole rocking and rolling.
Don't be a wallflower. Be a part of the show. Leave your question or message by calling 702-900-7869. That's 702-900-7869. Or drop us an email at mail@silverandblacktoday.com.
All right. It's that time of the show we get to hear from you, our great listeners who, not just because they agree with us a lot, because they do. I mean, you find your tribe, so to speak. And so some shows, people want to hear some shows, and guys go crazy and do the fan thing, and that's awesome. There's some really good people who do that. Here, we try to stay even-keeled and objective, and those of you out there who like that, stay with us, and you call in too. So do that. 702-900-7869 is the number. You can also text that number. I'm going to start with a text today, Mo. And this is from one of our long time, and it's a long message. I'll get through it pretty quickly. So to the listener, I'm sorry, to the texter, the listener who texted in, I might consolidate a little bit here, but I'll get your message in. And that is a guy who's watched us on YouTube since the very beginning when I was doing the show at CBS Sports Radio in the studio. His name is Guareb. And Guareb, I love this guy because he can be really, really negative, and I just always come back at him with fun stuff. But he's a smart guy. Anyway, he said, hey, it's Guareb. Why are we trying to win? What is the point? All this is definitely ice the Raiders out of a top QB, and no matter what you guys say, this class is super weak. There's only 2-3 quarterbacks. Sanders, Cam Ward, maybe Milroe has the best chance to help change this organization. No more game managers. But this stupid organization just doesn't get it. It starts with a quarterback, period. Every bad organization, Commanders, Bears, Texans, who had horrible rosters, making the Raiders the so-called commitment to excellence, the most pathetic organization along with Carolina and the Jets. Exactly where the Raiders belong 21 years. Most Raider fans are the worst quarterback evaluators. Okay, Scott and Mo, you guys make me laugh because you push to win. Then Raiders win a couple more games, then talk about, well, no one is going to trade with the Raiders for a QB. I already see you guys going through that, and at this point, this is the closest the Raiders will come to drafting a top QB. Why in the hell screw that chance? So, and he's got some more stuff about the quarterback. Good text. Guareb, thanks for that. And Mo, I'll start just with the last point where he talks about you guys push to win. I'm assuming you say, hey, we talk about them trying to win. Yeah. I mean, we, as a show, do you want us to come on and say, hey, everything sucks? Let's do 12 more weeks of draft previews. No, we're going to talk. And by the way, Mo, talk about this because you just mentioned it in the previous segment. Mm-hmm. Antonio Pierce has to win. If he doesn't win, he's gone. He's not on some 3-year plan where he gets a gimme year.
Right. And that was my point about the trade deadline. Had the Raiders started trading away quality players, to me, it would indicate that they've communicated to Antonio Pierce, look, this is a 2-3 year plan. We're just going to develop our young players. You'll be back, and we'll try to rebuild this thing from scratch. They didn't do that. They kept their players. Now, I know people will say the Raiders don't have many assets, but I saw players that aren't as good as some of the Raiders players that were traded yesterday. The Raiders had a chance to make some moves if they wanted to, but they stood pat at the deadline, which indicates that they're trying to legitimately fix things because if you're Pierce, you're not thinking about draft capital. You're not thinking about draft order because the number one thing is you have to preserve your job. So in order for you to use that draft capital, you have to have the job, right? You're not going to care if you're sitting on your couch watching the draft like everyone else. So right. Pierce, first and foremost, has to at least win a couple of games and show that he's able to put together a decent staff that can help this team improve. Because if it continues to roll the other way, as we've said multiple times now, he's going to be fired. So tanking is not an option for Pierce right now. Has to be winning first and foremost. So that's why we talk about the Raiders having to win games for the sake of Antonio Pierce, who's trying to keep his job.
And Guareb, and by the way, thank you for the text, man. I do appreciate it. Even though I don't agree with you on everything, I appreciate the passion and the intelligence behind it too. But the other thing with your point about quarterbacks, I don't disagree with you. I think the Raiders over the last 2 years, now they tried, as far as we know, they tried last year to move up. It was a great class, and everybody wanted those quarterbacks, and you can see why, especially in Washington. So I don't disagree with you there that they need to do everything. And I said this year, somebody asked me, so what would you do? Would you trade it? I said, I'd do everything to get, if you like Cam Ward, for example, or Shedeur Sanders, right? Top two guys. If those are your top two guys, you got to do everything you can. Yeah, okay, you're not going to do something stupid like Dallas did with Herschel Walker back in the day. But you're going to do something pretty drastic because you got to get that quarterback. So we'll see. But anyway, great text. I appreciate it. All right, now on to the callers. Our good buddy, Dominique in St. Louis. Here he goes.
Dominique. Scott and Mo, this is Dominique from the Show Me. How you fellas doing? First and foremost, I know everyone wanted Luke Getsy gone. He's gone. They promote Scott Turner. In my opinion, Scott Turner is no better than Luke Getsy. Nothing will change with this offense under Scott Turner. His days as an offensive coordinator with Washington, units were terrible. He's not a good OC. And then they bring in his father, 72-year-old Norv Turner. I mean, what a joke. This guy hasn't coached in the NFL probably since I was in junior high. I think the game has passed him up. I just don't understand it. I don't get it. Nothing will change. And then Norv Turner, that's like we need another old, washed up, has-been coach to come in and quote unquote help. That's what Marvin Lewis was supposed to do. That's what Joe Fielding was supposed to do. Instead, he's bringing in these old guys, and it's just a joke. It's a clown show. I just don't get it. Absolutely nothing at all will change. Let me know what you think, guys. Of course, I'll be listening, but I just had to get that one off my chest with the Turners coming in and helping turn this offense around. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Dominique in St. Louis, always great calls. Really smart guy, good football
Yeah.
mind. Appreciate that. I got nothing to add to what he said.
Again, I always enjoy Dominique's calls.
Yeah.
Not just because he sounds like my family down south. I can tell in his voice, I can hear it.
Yeah.
But I just, he made a point that we didn't make in the first two segments, and that's Scott Turner's resume isn't glowing. So he's more experienced than Luke Getsy, but it's not like his offenses were lighting it up either. Now he had Taylor Heineke and Alex Smith after he came back from surgery. He didn't have great quarterbacks, but the Raiders don't have a great quarterback situation either. So I don't expect much to change either.
Yeah.
The point about the team bringing in these washed out coaches is a point we've made. I don't think we've been as strong as we should with it because we don't want to offend people. But why is it that the Raiders are always looking in the rearview mirror?
Yes.
Why are they always looking in the past? It seems like the Raiders, the favorite phrase within Raider Nation seems to be bring such and such back. And it should be, we need to look forward. Who's the next brilliant mind? Who's the next brilliant this or that? Why is it always, we got to bring this guy back? We got it. Not we, but I think the Raiders as an organization have to stop living in the past. And the glory days were in the past, and they were great. And it's good to think about those years and those decades. But we're in 2024 now. Stop reaching back in the past. Stop looking back at what you did 20, 30 years ago. Stop looking at who was good 20, 30 years ago. Stop the 2.0 tenures. And let's get fresh minds in the building because that's the only way you're going to improve and take a step forward.
Okay, so you're saying no Art Shell and Lane Kiffin. That's what you're saying?
That would be next. Bring back Lane Kiffin. He's doing well at Ole Miss.
I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised at this point. All right, here we're going out to the great state of New York, and this is Dave Casper the Ghost. Oh, he starts with a Mo.
That sigh was an ode to Mo. That is a Mo
yes.
sigh. This is Dave
That's
Casper
a Mo
the
sigh.
Ghost from upstate New York. Hi, guys. I literally just listened to your Tuesday podcast. I don't want to talk about the game, another blowout, all that. I just want to talk about going forward. It doesn't matter who they bring in as an OC at this point. Yes, Getsy needed to be changed, but there had to be a change there. But these coaches that were fired were also selected by AP. So what I wanted to know is, because obviously the Raiders do things half-ass backwards, they hired the coach first and then the GM. Will Telesco have the ability to make a change at coach if the Raiders wind up going 4-13, say? I agree. They have one or two more wins in them, maybe the Saints, maybe Jacksonville. Can he – and listen, Telesco has a terrible track record for hiring coaches. I know that. I don't know how much the Spanoses were at fault or limited him, but anything can be better than this. I think AP is in over his head. He doesn't look like he has control of the team. I'll give him credit. The team is playing hard for him. They haven't quit on him, but they are fundamentally bad across the board. And as some coach from college once said, I think it was Bowden, if you're allowing it, you're coaching it. So the missed tackles continuously, the same mistakes, that's being allowed. So that's on coaching. Going forward, what I would like to see happen, and hopefully Tom Brady has more say in this than we hope, is that they do a complete teardown. And when people say that, they think, oh my God, they're going to take years. In football particularly, you can tear a team down and be competitive in a year or two. But I think this team needs a complete teardown. They have some good young quality players, Jackson Powers, Jacorian Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
They have some young pieces that they can build around. But they need to really seriously consider gutting this team. And does that mean trading Max Crosby? I know he's the identity of this team, but if he doesn't want to be part of a rebuild for the next couple of years and you can get a couple of ones for him, then you do that. I would not want to trade Max, but this team, they're just going in circles. So I'm really hoping they go out there and get a Brian. I don't think Brian Johnson would coach this S show. But if they have a top 3 pick, maybe you can lure a bright young mind. They need a young staff. They don't need these bunch of has-beens and holdovers. Norv.
Well, you got cut off. That's all right, Anders. You were passionate. You were going. He didn't leave a part 2, but great call.
Dave Casper. It's Casper.
I mean, sorry, Dave Casper the Ghost. Anders is next. So there you go. Dave Casper the Ghost. Yeah, I mean, listen, I get it. Again, we're living in the football cocoon version of the movie.
To Dave Casper's comment about rebuilding, I made this point last 2 weeks ago that if you get the quarterback head coaching positions right, you could turn it around fairly quickly. Again, I'm not saying trade Max Crosby because I was one of the people who said you need something to build around. You don't necessarily have to gut the whole roster because that's not. You look at the past couple of teams that have made leaps. The Texans, they still had some quality players on the roster when they drafted C.J. Stroud. Commanders, they still had quality players on the roster when they drafted Jaden Daniels, Deron Payne being one of them. So they had some key players. They had, and I call them foundational players. Your 3 to 5 core guys that you want to build around that you're not going to trade. Right now for the Raiders, Max Crosby, Brock Bowers, Jacorian Bennett, maybe Nate Hobbs are some of those guys in that core. And then you have to nail the quarterback head coaching position because I made this point on social media that the Raiders are in a division with Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Jim Harbaugh. And all 3 coaches have a winning percentage of 62% or higher. 62% or higher. So if you're the Raiders, you have to think about it as you're competing with these successful big resumes. You have to nail it. Whether you think Antonio Pierce can do the job, and a lot of people are out on Antonio Pierce now, or whether you think you can upgrade. And I'm in that boat where, let's say if a brilliant mind, as Dave Casper goes to put it, wants the job, I'm saying I'm going with the young brilliant mind, especially if he's an offensive-minded head coach. Now I don't have to cycle out my offensive coordinator every couple or few years. He coaches the offense because I want to make it clear. Because a coach is a good offensive coordinator, play call doesn't mean he's going to be a good head coach. But that's the route that a lot of teams are going because you want to have that continuity between a head coach and offensive coordinator. You don't want to have any friction where your head coach has this philosophy, your offensive coordinator has this philosophy. You don't have that problem when the head coach is calling the plays because they're 1-1. They're the same person. Yeah. So I just want to say that the Raiders have to go into this offseason with an open mind in the head coaching position. If there's an upgrade out there, you make the upgrade even if you're like Antonio Pierce.
It's just like players. If you can get better, meaning you can find a coach that's better, then why wouldn't you? I mean, that's it. And so, I hear a lot of people talk about Mike Vrabel, which I don't think I like Mike Vrabel. I don't think that would be the right choice. You're getting a young quarterback. Mike Vrabel, okay, does he have better relationships in the league than Antonio Pierce? Probably, but they didn't do well in Tennessee with quarterbacks or develop. I mean, they had Ryan Tannehill, right? So they got lucky with that one. But to me, we'll see what the names are if we get to that point. But thanks for the call, my good friend Dave Casper the Ghost. We appreciate that, as always. All right, now we're going to move on to Anders in Oakland. Our good buddy Anders in Oakland. He's going to be fired up, I have a feeling. Here we go. Oh, there we go.
Hi, fellas. It's Anders from Oakland again, and I just listened to Mo's soapbox epic. Absolutely spot on. I just want to say that I really appreciate your guys' objectivity. I know that you guys did not like the Antonio Pierce hiring. You were right. But you did provide, hey, if things really work out, it might go in this direction. You weren't just all shitting all over that hire. It's proven now, obviously, that Harbaugh would have been a much better hire. I would put your guys' record up against just about anybody's. I mean, you were jumping up and down with C.J. Stroud, that we should have traded up to get him. Of course, we should have instead of drafting Tyree. I mean, I think you're right more than you're wrong, way more. And I'd like the take. I'm not here to listen to cheerleaders. And I also think it's realistic. I don't think that you're overly negative or overly positive. You're just giving, a lot of it is facts. A lot of it is pretty objective. So I appreciate that. One last thing on drafting a quarterback that I think is a little bit overlooked. You see these young guys coming in, like the C.J. Strouds of the world and the kid in Washington, like they take command of the huddle. They lead. And I think every time you look around, regardless of skills, a lot of these guys are pretty skilled, but it's whether they have the presence and whether they have the leadership ability when they walk into that huddle. You look at Kenny Stabler, he had more interceptions than he had touchdowns. But my God, would you want to rally around that guy? And I think the problem that we have, and I've brought this up so many times, is that at least the two guys we've had, they're not leaders. They're just kind of walking in there. They're one of the players. And overall, we kind of lack leadership on the offensive side of the ball. And that always has to be the quarterback. Yeah, I know Devontae Adams or there's some tight end somewhere or whatever you have, but it is the quarterback. And that's why I kind of like this Sanders guy out of Denver or out of Colorado. There's no question that kid's going to take command of the huddle. Whether he's going to be successful or not is another question. But his leadership is unquestioned. Then we'll see what comes out of that. But look at all the good quarterbacks. They're all leaders, and the teams rally around their guys. And it's always been that way. That's what I think we have to look at first and foremost, not somebody who can throw the ball 80 yards from his knees. Anyway, my 2 cents. I love the show. I always look forward to it, and you do a great job. Just my 2 cents. Thanks, guys.
Can I get an amen for Anders?
Anders. Appreciate
right.
Anders.
Always good stuff.
And
too.
everyone else.
Yeah, and I mean, besides the praise, and again, thank you for that. Mo and I work hard here and other places too. So we, when people appreciate what we do, we certainly don't take that lightly.
I will say really quick to that point, we would be a lot more positive if the Raiders are a lot more winning. I think it's really that simple. We're just not gonna sprinkle. We're not gonna put sprinkles on poop here. And say, hey, have and eat it and pretend it's cake. We're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
So once the Raiders start winning, you'll get more of the, I guess, what you want to call positivity. But if they're losing, we're going to explain why. We're going to do the autopsy on what went wrong and how it went wrong. Now, to the point about a quarterback, Scott, I think he's spot on with the leadership quality. You can have a wide receiver that's leading the locker room, but it has to start under center because that guy's touching the ball on every snap, whether he's handing it off or throwing it downfield. And he has to take charge, whoever that is, the quarterback of that locker room. So when Tom Telesco, I think Dave Ziegler said this, neck up qualities, and that's what attracted the Raiders to Aiden O'Connell. He has those leadership qualities. He's just not a vocal leader, really.
Right.
But when the Raiders go to choose their quarterback in 2025, I think beyond, as Anders said, throwing the ball 80 yards from his knees, he has to be able to command the locker room and have players rally around him and follow him. And I think that's going to be the big question around Shedeur Sanders because a lot of people still have a problem with his personality. I don't think it's his talent. You watch Shedeur Sanders play football at Colorado, you could tell he could play the position.
Undeniable.
It's the other stuff that people are worried about with him. Is his personality going to mesh well with teammates in the locker room when he gets to the pro level? Him being Deion Sanders' kid, people look at them as a bit arrogant, not a bit, but arrogant, aloof. That's going to be the question with Shedeur Sanders and breaking him down in those one-on-one meetings during the draft.
Yeah, especially playing for his dad. It's different. It's a different dynamic. So we'll see how it all plays out. But Anders, thanks, man. We appreciate the call, and that wraps up the Raider Nation Mailbag. Man, great calls again. I mean, look, I know it's tough. Fans, now you got to start to look forward a little bit. We'll see what happens the rest of the season. But we certainly appreciate the discussion. We'll be here. We're going to start diving into the future. We'll start talking about some of these quarterbacks. We're going to assume the Raiders do the right thing and somehow get a quarterback, whether they're right in that 1, 2, or 3 position or they got to trade up to get it. That's what we're going to assume. So we'll start talking to some folks and bringing some folks on the show to talk to you about those things. In the meantime, Mo, as we sit here on Thursday, let everybody know what you got coming up on the Midtown Mo slate.
Nothing, pretty much. The trade deadline is passed. The trade deadline is passed. No, I didn't have a Wednesday show, obviously, because the Raiders are on a bye week. There's no game this Sunday, so some Raider fans are breathing a most sigh of relief that they don't have to watch the Raiders score a touchdown within the first 2 drives and then go silent for 55 minutes. So the Raiders are taking a break. I'm taking a break. Raider Nation, take a break. Take a deep breath.
Yes.
If we still have half the season left, there's still a lot to go through, still a lot more losses to look at. So take a deep breath, refresh yourself, smell the rose, go outside, smell the roses, play in the fall leaves, have
There you
fun with
go.
your family, have a pumpkin latte, do something fun this weekend.
Pumpkin latte. Look at you. All cosmopolitan New York guy.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
have some pumpkin over here.
Pumpkin
All right.
latte. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, a pumpkin latte. What am I? Okay. And we want to also thank you, and Mo and I were very particular, excuse me, not peculiar. We could be peculiar, but particular about, this election season's over now. So we don't have to talk about it. We didn't talk about it. We never were going to talk about it, but I'm just glad my phone's not blowing up anymore and I have to watch those damn commercials. Hopefully you're all there too. So, and I don't know if those commercials made their way into our show on YouTube or on the radio or whatever, because they buy ads, but I'm going to do a most sigh of that. Thank God that's over and we don't have to deal with these crazy people who are running for office. But anyway, let's thank everybody out there, including our producer on the radio in Las Vegas is Mr. Mark Bonilla, who is a peach of a dude. Really great guy. I want to thank him for all he does for us. Also, our producer at Odyssey, Mr. Mike Robier, who's always on the beat as well. So thank you guys for doing that. Make sure you subscribe to the show and rate and review wherever you get it. Also, I got to remind you one more time because I want you to have free money. 150% sign-up bonus from our friends at BetUS. YouTube 150 is the promo code. That's YouTube 150. That's up to $2,000 on your first deposit. Second and third deposits, they're going to give you 125%. Ah, yes. So start playing today. Take our exclusive offer. YouTube 150 is the call there for you. All right? My man, I will see you next week, and we'll start to actually talk about a game. We'll start to look at some quarterbacks, and dare I say, start to look at some coaching possibilities. We'll see. I might give that one more week and see what happens. You know, you don't want to be too presumptive.
Give AP some grace. Give him 2 weeks grace, maybe.
Yeah, see what he does. Hey, maybe he comes out of this bye and they start to show a little bit. Again, don't care if they win at this point because they need that draft pick. But at that point, at least you see some progression and some development of young players. That's what you want to see. All right, Mo. I'll see you on Tuesday, my friend.
Take care, Scott. Take care, Raider Nation.
All right. For everybody here at Silver and Black today, have a great weekend. As Mo said, get out in the fall weather. If you're in Nevada, that means it's 75. And you might put a sweatshirt on in the evening. If you're on the East Coast, it's getting a little blustery. It's still pretty warm. But hey, enjoy your weekend, enjoy your friends, enjoy your family, and enjoy a cold one for Mo and I. Until next week, this has been Silver and Black Today. Take care. All right, man.